My name is Juan Gaitan. I'm the CEO of Talento & Co. Talento & Co. Is a company founded in Coral Gables. We do three things. But really today what we're focused on is talking about really, I think, the three core pillars of what's happening in Venezuela. But what we're calling this is a project that has been put together with the United Nations, the Embassy of Venezuela, the mission of Venezuela to the United Nations, and is now progressing deep within the country with several ministries. Coming soon will be the U.S. Department of State. And this is a project that really kind of gets birth from like a humanitarian perspective, right? And it really focuses on $2 million in already committed projects within our pipeline, just as it relates to the rebuilding of Venezuela. That $100 million in projects already stacks up to about $1 billion in projects. We're one of 5 major global firms that are hitting there now. And guys, we're only 2 weeks in. The regime change has only happened as of really January 3rd. So we're truly in a supernova speed. But really the focus of today is to talk about Venezuela's re-entry to the global economy and how that's going to be defined less by capital really and more by the ability to connect to the right talent. A little bit about Venezuela. I do happen to be a Venezuelan born. The son of 3 Colombian grandparents and a Dutch grandparent. For any of you that know Venezuela, it's quite European mixed culture with Northern Indian, and obviously a significant amount of kind of Spanish population from the different centuries. 30 million people, a full-scale consumer market, one of the most dynamic in the South America region, a diaspora of 8 million folks that have exited the country over the last 20 million. Imagine being a 38 million person country and now being down 8 million. $200 billion in rebuild capex, and that's a metric that they're thinking is going to double 5 times. I think when people think of Venezuela, they think of security. And fun fact, right? The most recent global security index actually showed Venezuela lower on the index than Germany. I want to talk about a reframe, and the reframe is really around a comeback and a global repositioning on the global economic stage. And I think really the question, guys, is any of those that are thinking about Venezuela as an investment opportunity is you have to ask yourself a really specific question, and it's a question that not all markets have really this question for. Can you go supernova? This will be a whoever is there first, whoever is there deploying the capital the fastest, and is connecting that to the talent, will be the ones that see some of the most significant gains. As we talk about the sectors, right, there's 6 core sectors, but many more that we're going to talk about. The first one being energy and infrastructure, the second one being telecommunications and digital, the third being healthcare and life science, the fourth being hospitality and tourism, the fifth being retail and consumer packaged goods, the sixth being education and media. What the reality is there is no real single strategy in winning in this competitive marketplace. Talent needs are going to vary by those sectors. Building energy and infrastructure versus building retail and e-commerce are very different philosophies. The time that it takes to rebuild a power plant or an electric grid versus the time that it takes to build a mobile app and start selling something are incredibly different. I think the other thing I think of, right, is that the reality is whatever you're going to make of it. And if you kind of combine the drive and the capital, plus I think the market support that you're going to get, not just from Talento, but really the embassy, the UN, and the different government resources, as well as the additional global players that are in there, warp speed is absolutely possible, but it's going to put a pressure test on your team that frankly only the survival of the fittest are going to do something. You can ask any of my team that's here today, they're feeling it internally and us moving there. Let's dig a little bit deeper into the actual sectors, right? Because I think they're very broad categories. When you think of energy and infrastructure, if you're an investor, here's just a couple of the areas to focus on, right? Upstream and downstream oil and gas, power generation, power transmission, roads, ports, water, and then the ability to create public and private partnerships, right? For those of us that live in the U.S. and Europe, we know that sometimes the power system is run and owned by a government, and sometimes it's run by a public company like a NextEra Energy or an American Energy Systems. Huge opportunities. let's talk about the diaspora, right? Where are the people that used to run Venezuela, as entered these sectors in Venezuela? Houston, Calgary, Madrid, Doha, Singapore. And ultimately, there's maybe some folks that are going to fill that bench, but there's certainly a significant amount of inventory that will not be able to fill that bench. So it'll create an incredible opportunity for, frankly, those that maybe are not Venezuelan but are interested in living in a company that offers you security, the lifestyle, and the opportunity near warm, beautiful beaches, and not only a 2.5-hour flight from Miami. The next sector I want to talk about is telecommunications and digital. And I think the reason why this one really stands out to me right now is that ultimately we all know that data connectivity charges productivity. A modern economy at a supernova pace in the digital world, it requires a cutting-edge network. So what are some of the things that we're talking about when it comes to that? Fiber, mobile, data center, the cloud, cybersecurity, fintech. Huge opportunity, guys. So for those of you that are investors in that space and have not yet thought about it, definitely see me so I can connect you with some of the folks, because that's an area that there's an incredible amount of investment. We budgeted $50 billion investment, and the demand already shows there's probably a $300 billion opportunity there with almost a 5 times ROI. The next one is an incredibly intimate and personal one because it's personal for citizens, residents, and families. But it's incredibly strategic for every investor. And this one's about healthcare and life sciences. And really the focus areas that you have just within that is, think of hospital and outpatient health systems, right? Think of the next Baptist, the next Broward Health, the next Memorial Health, the next Cleveland Clinic. Again, opportunities for both public and private institutions. Pharmaceuticals, diagnostics, medical devices. Tremendous opportunities, 30 million folks, projected to double over the next 2 decades. Could be even faster depending on how fast we can get some of these projects moving. The next one is hospitality and tourism. Raise your hand here if you've ever been to Venezuela. That's 2 of us, okay, great. That's a lot of opportunities there. Venezuela basically has an incredibly beautiful beach ecosystem on the Caribbean. They've got an incredible plane system. They've got the tallest waterfall in the world. So what are the sectors that are going to come as an opportunity to that? Hotels, resorts, destinations, food, beverage, e-commerce, airports, and ports. The next industry is retail and consumer goods. Again, we've talked about 30 million customers, high consumption, a love and affinity for American and European brands, incredibly fashionable, and leaders in the Miss Universe crowns. What are the things that are going to allow you to compete and go supernova? You must be modern. You must also have a traditional edge, family orientation. And then some of the segments within that you have an opportunity to focus on are fast-moving consumer goods, cold chain products, logistics, last mile logistics, e-commerce, social, and anything that facilitates speed. Because when they want it now. The next segment, education and media. And education and media are so important because ultimately it's a sector that underwrites every other sector. Think of an elementary school, a middle school, a high school. So think of the K through 12 system. Higher education. Training and technical vocations, right? Oil and gas jobs, hospitality jobs, call centers, business process outsourcing. Educational technology platforms, media, content, music. All of this to help us rebuild the national narrative around what people think it was versus what it is now. It's the anchor for all sectors. We all know that education is vital, but having fun, enjoying your music, and being with your friends and your family, cooling down in the car on the way to the office, on the way back on the train, just when you have time alone is incredibly important. Incredible opportunity for global investments, a tremendous human capital shortage in the education sector, and ultimately the #1 source of a sustainability crisis that the country needs to really bring head on, and is already beginning to do so. So any of those of you that are educators, any of those of you that are music and content creators, any of those of you that are interested in helping rebuild that national narrative and having tremendous financial opportunities along the way should really pay attention in the Education and Media Center within Venezuela. All right, the next one I want to talk about is the phases for speed and precision. And this is a strategy that I put together last week with the chief of the International Organization for Mobilization for the United Nations. I sat down with the former Minister of Commerce, the Vice Minister of the Military, there's a collective effort in Venezuela right now to say, look, our military wants to focus on governance and support, not being political. Our government